This episode of the Better 2 podcast is brought to you by Kitty Mystic and M.Needom, author of My Days with the Dark Muse, as well as Love is Worth Waiting For. Hi gang, Donna here. Thanks for tuning in to the Better 2 podcast. Today's guest is Kristin Grant. And guess what we're celebrating? We're talking about Valentine's Day, but we're not just talking about Valentine's Day. We're talking about writing love letters and some of our personal relationships, including what I consider my worst Valentine's Day date ever. But I digress. She actually is an author as well as a singer, and she likes helping people write letters, whether it be love letters or relationship letters, about their feelings, because some people don't have the gift of words, but she channels these letters for the person that has hired her to give the gift to somebody else. So I hope you enjoy the show. When I discovered Buzzsprout, I was about 30 or 40 episodes already in, and I thought, I really think they have a lot of opportunities here and a lot of options for me to explore, but it's going to be a lot of work to move the podcast. Wrong. It was so simple. It was a click of the button and everything transferred over seamlessly. And bonus, I got a website out of it, a website that has all my social media links for the podcast, and everything in there is central in one place. What could be more convenient? I mean, honestly. Then, besides that, a couple of clicks of buttons, and I'm on every major platform. It was simple. And, you know, you want to build your audience. You want to be on every platform you can. And also, the other thing was analytics. The analytics were top of the line. So if you have a podcast already and you want to move it, I would highly recommend doing it with Buzzsprout. And if you're new to the podcasting business, Buzzsprout is the way to go. And right now, if you follow the link in the show notes and tell Buzzsprout we sent you, it'll get you a $20 gift card if you sign up for our paid plan, which helps support our show, and we would greatly appreciate it. The only thing is, remember, before you freak out if you don't get it after you get one paid month, it takes two before you get that Amazon gift card. So check Buzzsprout out. I'm sure you would be happy, and let's create something together and come over to Buzzsprout. Hi, Christina. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Donna. How are you?
I'm doing good. Today, for all the listening audience, we are doing a Valentine's Day episode. And the reason we're doing a Valentine's Day episode is I ran across Kristine, and it was the whole fact that she actually writes love letters for people. And what better way to celebrate Valentine's Day than talking about love? So tell us what you do.
Okay, well, my background, Donna, is I was a family therapist for 20 some years. Alongside of that, I was also a school psychologist. And when you're a therapist type, often neighbors, friends will come to you for advice, right? Mm-hmm. And so I had a neighbor approach me many years ago. And this was like 2004, actually. And she was starting to date this guy. And she goes, you know, he checks off on all the boxes. He's great. He's an attorney. He's kind. He sent me flowers yesterday. I mean, he's amazing. He's fun. But you know what? I keep waiting for that chemistry thing to show up. I don't want to kiss him. And I feel badly about it. I just don't. I don't have that, you know, I'm not getting the tingles or whatever. But I think of him more as a brother type. I'd like to have him as a friend. And I said, well, you have to. I mean, he just sent you flowers. You better tell him how you feel. They'd been dating for, I'm going to say, probably 6 weeks, give or take. And she said, you're right, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid that I am going to either feel super embarrassed and or hurt his feelings. It stresses me out to think about having that conversation. So I said, okay, I get it. Why don't you do this? Why don't you get a nice blank card, something pretty, and write a little note in it? And when you see him the next time before the end of the date, just say, hey, you know, I've been thinking about you a lot, and I'm so grateful that we've met. You mean a lot to me. And I just wanted to be real clear on where I'm at with how I relate to you and where my feelings are. So I thought, oh, I'll send you a little card with it. So here you go. And she goes, that's a great idea. So she comes back a couple days later with her message that she's composed. I looked at it. with sheer disgust, I might add, because it was all a lie. It was the old "it's me, not you" routine. She
Oh,
started off with, I don't know what you're looking for, but it seems like, you'd like to have a relationship, and I'm not interested. I don't want a relationship with anyone. Lie number one. Lie
yeah.
number two, I suck at relationships. That's why. I like being alone. I mean, it just, the list went on. So I tore it up and I immediately composed what I thought would be perfect. And she was like, whoa, this is great. She gave it to him. It worked out beautifully. In fact, they're still friends to this day, as I know. And I think he married somebody probably 10 years ago, beautiful woman, but she had a legal matter come up and he took care of everything free of charge.
Nice.
So with that experience, she started referring me to friends and other people. And it was getting to the point where I'd pick up my phone and someone would say, hey, I just got off a cruise. I'm on the East Coast, but I hear you write these amazing letters. Can you help me out? So I literally was helping to write these letters as a sheer hobby pastime. And the letters were getting instant gratification and shifting the situation just with like, in such a timely manner. It was crazy. So anyhow, I had one woman about 4 years down the road. I mean, I wasn't even charging at the time, to be honest, even though I was a therapist.
Mhm.
And this one woman I was referred to, she was divorced, but her ex-husband was pretty nefarious, not a nice guy.
Okay.
And there had been domestic violence in their history. And she had a restraining order and she was still afraid. She thought somehow he would, try to get even with her for divorcing him. And so I wrote a simple letter to him. She somehow got it to him and he conveyed to her, I love you. I will always love you. Thank you for this. And you'll never have to worry about me. I won't intrude in your life again. And that was 2008. And that has been the case.
Nice.
Yeah. So then she said, I have to pay you. And I'm like, you do? So the value of what I did, because what I do is out of the box. Sometimes I coin myself as being a Cyrano de Bergerac in drag. Okay. And so,
Well, I thought of the movie Roxanne when I read your bio, because there we go, Cyrano de Bergerac and Roxanne, same thing.
yes.
So
Yes. And do you remember the movie Her, capital Her, with Joaquin Phoenix, Scarlett Johansson? I think it might be on Netflix or one of those. It won an Academy Award in 2012 for Best Screenplay. And the plot was, it was a futuristic film. So this is 2012, and we can draw a comparison to today, 10 years later. And artificial intelligence had overtaken the planet. So people had lost their ability to communicate and express from the heart. They even were taking your own DNA and making artificial friends that you'd have like a little bot or carry it around with you, and you could have conversations with this person, this entity, this AI entity, so to speak, that also carried your own DNA. So, and what did this man Joaquin do for a living in the movie? He worked in a high-rise tower in Los Angeles in a cubicle with all these other people in cubicles, and their job was to write letters expressing emotions to connect others for a living. Wow. So my phone was ringing off the hook. And, I said, oh, there's nothing futuristic about this. I've been doing this for 8 years so far. And to date, I have composed well over 400 letters for people.
Wow.
Yeah. And it is my pleasure. It's been a real passion for me because, when we feel stuck, when we're faced with something that is difficult to deal with, or we don't understand, or we're holding on to old resentments and we're dragging that emotional baggage around with us, it's very difficult to really problem solve in a way that keeps our ego out of the mix. We become a little myopic. And I'm not pontificating, because sometimes I have situations in my personal life that may arise, and what comes in initially is my history, my perceptions, my conditioning, how I was raised, all the experiences of life.
Your
What I do,
expectations.
yes, exactly. And so when I'm working with a client, I have my own baggage, perhaps. I don't have theirs. So I leap over it and tap into what I call the higher heart. And I've always been super intuitive. I don't do psychic readings for a living, but I've given psychic readings, and I'm into that woo-woo aspect of life, the spiritual part, the soul. And so I like to say, because the conception for some people might be, what do you mean you're writing my letter? It's not I'm not writing your letter, I'm downloading, I'm channeling it in. And one dad who had a big rift with his son asked me to help him out. The son calls him up from Sweden and says, Dad, I got the letter. It touched my heart. I thank you. Was the letter true? Was everything true? And the father said, you know what? I can't write worth a lick. I had this lady help me, but you got to know something, son. Every single word in my letter came from my heart. So that's what I do, is I translate your heart, the language of your heart. So
For some people, that, another term besides channeled writing would be automatic writing. And it's a gift that most intuitive people have. Sometimes when I look at my first book that I wrote, it's written from a male's point of view, a drugged out male's point of view. I don't have a history of drug abuse. But yet, when it was posted as a blog, I had rehab centers reaching out and following me. So that told me that I was channeling it, automatic writing. I was in the zone being this person. So I completely understand what you're saying. And that is a gift that you're able to give that to people.
Right. And I can often just figure out the backstory. Over the Christmas holidays, I felt like one of Santa's elves, because I had so many letters to write.
Mm-hmm.
And with the sign of the times, our social circumstances, where there have been a lot of separations, a lot of rifts, a lot of power struggle. I wasn't invited because what have you. So this one lady contacted me, and she had been married for 51 years to her husband. They were high school sweethearts, and they had 2 kids. Kids are all grown, long time ago. And her husband was kind of a demure personality. He was more serious. He took his job seriously. He was very organized. And she also had a very good job in human relations for a big company. But she discovered that he had had an affair for 7 years with somebody that he met through his job. And so when we did the deep dive and really looked at what was going on, it was, it's like, well, okay, when he started to have the affair had since ended. Their one and only daughter had passed away in her sleep within a year of her husband having this affair. Everyone handles their grief differently. And this is not to excuse him for, the dishonesty of all that, etc. But understandably, from his perspective, that was his way of not dealing with reality. He was very close to the daughter. Mm-hmm. So he found a great distraction. rather than coming home to his wife who was, so upset and mourning. He couldn't handle it. He couldn't fix it.
Right.
So I was writing the letter to him when it came through that they needed to take a second honeymoon and respark the romance. They'd been together since high school.
Yeah.
I think they were probably in their early 70s or something. And so she got the letter. What I do is I'll read the letter to someone, either on the phone or a Zoom call, once it's written, in case they, ever want to retract something or what have you. And I think I've had 2 people that have ever wanted something a little different. Not the letter itself, but maybe the closing of the letter. Oh, Sally might call me. And then 3 months later, I never heard from Sally after I changed the end of the letter. Okay. So,
Yeah.
But anyway, so she was really taken by the letter, and she put it in a Christmas card and put it in front of the computer, because he gets up early and that's the first thing he does is go to the computer. When she woke up, he came over, he hugged and kissed her and thanked her, wholeheartedly for that love letter. And he said, I'm so excited to create our honeymoon. And 2 days later, he gave her his letter. Here's a man who had a very difficult time expressing himself through the marriage. He was very, kind of a little bit shut down, kind of shy, conservative. And she said, oh my God, the letter he gave me was amazing. So, yeah.
I mean, that's the one thing. I was fortunate enough to have somebody in the second relationship to appreciate me and care about me enough that he would give me flowers for no reason. He would be there. He was legally blind. So it wasn't like I had to be Miss Perfect or anything, but he appreciated me for me, and he could be there for me when I needed him.
And he saw the real you.
Right. And that's so far removed from the relationship I was in when I was younger. And I think that has a lot to do with when we're younger, going back to that first letter you were talking about, we don't necessarily know what we want in the partner. We think that we're supposed to have these butterflies and everything. And the truth of the matter is, the first time I met my husband I was actually going to work at a New Year's Eve party. I was going to go do cards at the Hyatt. And I ended up going to my friend's house to pick up something. He was there. I said hi, didn't even really know anything about him. And later on, he tells me how he thought I was way out of his league. But you'll be amused by this, because I sat there. His birthday was the 30th and mine was the first, or our friend's was the 1st and mine was the 13th. So we all went out to breakfast, and afterwards she's like, you need to read his cards. And I'm like, I don't want to read his cards. We're not really totally friends yet. We're just kind of acquaintances. And so I read his cards, and I told him some blonde was going to come in and rock his world and turn it completely upside down. And at the time, my hair was blonder. And he's like, so who is that? I'm like, I have no idea. I'm not going to put myself in this reading. I'm like, I have no idea. He's like, is it my ex-girlfriend? I'm like, maybe. I don't know. And, lo and behold, we ended up hanging out for Halloween that year. And he's supposed to be meditating, and he sees my mom on top of me. So that goes back to something we were talking about off camera. Mm-hmm. And so while we're hanging out, I'm telling how one day I would love to collect Barbies. I would just absolutely love to collect Barbies, because I used to love Barbies when I was a kid. So that Christmas, I had moved in with this friend, and that Christmas he comes over and he gives her some candles, and then he hands me this gift, and I hadn't gotten anything for him. And I'm like, well, what is this? He goes, open it. It's your Christmas gift. So I open it, and it's Star Trek Barbies.
No way.
I just was like, my heart melted. I was just like, I cannot believe. Of course, later on, I found out he opened them because he wanted to see if the phasers flipped and everything, just like a guy would. But that Christmas, he came over in a top hat. So around Valentine's Day, I went to a local grocery store, and they had this little frog, and it had a top hat with little hearts coming off of it. So he had come over for Valentine's Day and gave me some candy, gave them candy. We weren't dating yet at all. And I handed him the frog, and he's like, what's this? I said, it's so you can find love. That's what it's for. It wasn't until like 2 months later, he went out helping me look for houses. And the first weekend, I picked a house that was across from his brother's, which I didn't know.
Oh,
Uh-oh, you're froze.
wow. You froze for a second.
Yeah,
Am I
we
still
both
frozen?
froze. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're fine. So I picked the house across the street from his brother. I did not know this. And then I pick up the following week, we go out to look at houses again. And this guy is telling us, oh, this will be a perfect place for you to raise your kids and everything else. And both of us are just like, okay. So we started talking. Yes, we ended up dating. And then one day he's like, can you come pick me up from work? I'm like, sure. So I drive downtown to pick him up. I realized that like 3 years prior, I worked right down the street from him and didn't even know. We would go to the same restaurants and everything. My old landlord was his boss at Wendy's. I mean, it was just like, I worked at Chuck E. Cheese and Kmart down in Shreveport. He was doing it up here in Illinois. And it was just like, if this was not meant to be, I'm not quite sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how long were you together?
We were married 16 and we were together 18.
Jeez.
So yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
Mm-hmm. And
wow.
I was fortunate enough. I mean, not everybody gets that. And so that's the beautiful, for Valentine's Day, yeah, it was always beautiful. And he listened to what I want. He would, if he saw something that he thought I would want, i.e. he knew I like Star Wars. So one Christmas he gives me an R2-D2 trash can. I'm like, babe, you didn't need to do that. I like Star Wars, but I didn't need the life-size replica of a R2-D2 trash can, which still is in the box. I have not used it, but it's just one of those things like, okay, but he's still, I mean, most women aren't lucky enough to find a mate that will be that attentive.
Yeah. I am divorced. But I did marry a very amazing man. And unbeknownst to me, there were things in the value system department that I discovered that were not checking off. But he still calls me the love of his life. And I will always have a love for him. And that's because I look at the whole person.
Mm-hmm.
So he had, he was a doctor, and he and I literally went around the world together. I mean, we took camels across the desert in Pakistan for 3 weeks and camped out. And he brought all these medicines, unbeknownst to me even, and took care of a village of mud people that lived in mud huts for a whole week. And we went with flying doctors, and he went to Nicaragua, and, when they were having their wars, and went in there to help. And, he did a lot of amazing things. And we together, I got engaged to him in a hot air balloon over the Serengeti in Africa. Wow, nice. Oh yeah. We Far East, Near East. And he did so many thoughtful things. At any rate, so one of the things he loved to do was magical tricks, and he loved to walk on stilts. And every year in the little town we lived in, they would have the 4th of July parade, and he would dress up like Uncle Sam on stilts and be juggling and have our 2 big dogs on long leashes at the same time, right?
That's an accident waiting to happen.
Totally. But he was a real ham. And so when he turned 40, I gave him a surprise party. And what I did was I went to the owners of this wonderful restaurant on a vineyard near where we lived. And I said, I want you to pretend to hire my husband to be a clown and give magic tricks to a private party.
Nice.
And so and then I said, and then we're going to make it his own surprise birthday party. And so they said, oh, we love it. And then I felt bad because he was like stressing out so much before the event.
Oh no.
And I would be like, like kind of like giggling, like, oh my God, I'm sorry. He couldn't sleep at night. He was so stressed.
Oh, no.
So he came, with the clown face and the top hat and the tails. And then we all jumped out and said, surprise.
And how did that go for him?
He loved it, and he kept doing the tricks, even though he went around to table. We had about 100 people there, sit down. It was really nice. Yeah. Nice. So I think when you make like like you were saying with your husband, to be so thoughtful.
Mhm.
Isn't that really what it's all about? Is how can I share my love? How can I express it?
Right. And I mean, I think like for me, I think it took me getting to a point where I got past some of my past trauma, because when I look at my first husband, I mean, I can be ridiculous, and he delivered a TV set. He forgot the remote. The following week, he brings the remote back. He asked me out, and then he moves in with me.
Ah,
Yes, insanity, folks. I admit it's 100% insanity. And then 3 days later, he asked me to marry him. Now, wait, now here's the real insane statement, because I tell him, well, I don't know you well enough to marry you. Okay, but you know him well enough to move in with you. I'm 21 years old. What do you expect from a 21
yeah,
year old?
yeah.
But when I look at, his idea, it's like, babe, get me a Dr. Pepper, I'll give you a kiss. And I would do it. And it's like, I don't understand where that person was, but I think there was a desire at that time, because he had 2 kids that I love dearly. But there was a desire at that time to be needed and to be wanted and to be useful, because I needed somebody to love me. And it's like, I wasn't looking at the person that was inside of me going, you can love yourself. You don't need all this extraneous BS.
Well, that's really where it starts, is the relationship with yourself.
Hmm.
If you're running on empty, there's nothing left to give.
Right.
And so I always say, keeping that chi energy up, keeping your own vibe up and enjoying your life on purpose, then that gives you extra layers where there's so many natural chi vampires, even unintentionally, that might be pulling on your energy field. But hey, it's like, I gotta go ahead, pull away. I've got plenty. I've got energy to spare. It's when we're running close to, we're feeling not as squared away with ourselves or our life or what have you, that we're vulnerable to having that kind of,
Yeah.
dishonoring or whatever. Yeah. When my parents, they got married after 6 weeks of knowing one another. And my my mom was Irish Catholic. My grandparents are from Ireland. And my dad was, I think he was a mix of everything, in German, Norwegian, and Scotch and Irish and da-da-da, but didn't really grow up with a real religion.
Mhm.
And so he had to take the catechism classes. So he says to my mother, Eileen, we should probably wait until after Lent to get married. And her response, I'll have somebody new by then.
Nice.
And so, very spunky lady. And I always thought it was so cute. And so, they were married and had 5 kids and the whole bit. So,
Wow.
yeah.
And how long did they stay married?
Okay, that's interesting. They were married for 35 years when my mother left him for a younger man.
Okay.
And oh God, I shouldn't tell this story.
Well, then don't. You don't have to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. It'll be the great mystery, but
it's a great mystery. But her second husband and my dad both passed away around the same time.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so she called me up and she said, I'm a widow twice, and I said, oh, Dad and Jim, they're up in heaven. They're looking out for you. She said, oh, they're probably up there playing poker.
Most likely.
And I said, well, Dad was so bossy. He's probably saying, and who put that Archangel Michael in charge of our unit? And my mom goes, yeah. And look at the dress on him. Who is this guy? It's like,
No doubt.
She was super funny. Yeah. But
yeah, I mean, there's certain stories I don't, if my guest wants to talk about something, they can. And if they don't, I don't pry, because, some things we want to keep to ourselves. So I get that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah. So I do the letter writing. I also help people with recreating or creating their online dating profiles. Because that is an art. It's like your own advertisement, right? And so my most recent one was this gentleman wasn't getting any action, and so many people are doing online dating. In fact, I think the statistics say there's like 50% marriages are stem from online dating introductions. And so anyway, he wasn't getting much action. And I said, okay, send over to me what you've got. And it was a laundry list, Donna, of I am, I have, I am, I can, and my perfect dream woman is, can, will be. And it was like this, have to, must haves, this unbelievable. And then the last line was the clincher. It was, and she, my ideal woman, will love her job. And I went, oh my gosh. Okay. Any woman reading that reads the meta message, which is, and you better work, you better be a contributor.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want you whining about your job either, by the way. So,
yeah. And let's be honest, most women seeing that would say, okay, so why do I want you? I can just take care of myself.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not to say that women, don't love their jobs or want or aspire to have anything they want to do. It's just when you're in a partnership to have that conditional, kind of expressed in your quote advertisement in your online profile. So I rewrote it in about 10 minutes, and the opening line, "Can I spoil you?"
Nice.
And he said, I can't believe how many responses I'm getting all of a sudden.
Those speaking of spoiling, I had a DM in my TikTok account, which, this is always trolls. Hi, beautiful. I'd like you to be my sugar baby. I'll pay you weekly. And my response back to him was, does this actually work? And then I blocked him. Because come on, this is right out the gate. Come on.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I'm always perplexed by those kinds of things, because it's like, who is this person? Do you not have a life? Or is it what's the payoff? Because they're setting themselves up for rejection.
Oh, I had one that claimed he claimed he was in a widow group. He claimed he lost his wife, so he didn't have any social media. Now, I should give a little background. I'm an insurance adjuster in a prior life here.
Okay.
So I have an investigative background. I'm also a writer. I have an investigative background. So he proceeds to tell me how he didn't have really any social media and he would like to talk to me on the phone. Now, mind you, this is after 2 minutes of being online. And I'm like, I don't do that. Well, can we talk? I said, I'll talk to you here, but nowhere else. Oh, well, okay. Well, I'm sorry for your loss about your husband. Okay. And then he wants to know what I do for a living. Then he wants to know, he's asking all these questions like, okay, you're fishing, dude, you're fishing hard. He says something then that he really trips up, because he messages me the next day and says something about wanting to talk to me on an app again. And I'm like, no, I don't do that. Well, and then he says something about his wife.
Oh my
and
God.
About how he does social media, how he had all these social media accounts. And then I came back and said, excuse me, cut, copy, paste, sent this back to him saying, look, you said this yesterday, you're saying this today. Sorry, not buying it. Goodbye.
Yeah, I don't even think I would waste that kind of energy. I just put the block on right away. Next.
I normally do, but
Yeah.
I was like, people are like, well, you need to be a little bit more open. And I'm like, no, especially because his whole career was oil finance, allegedly, which is a big scam from what I've read. So, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you my story, which is I'm very low tech. I just didn't get the genes. Right. And so when the initial lockdown for the COVID thing came up, and everybody was pretty much shut in, I actually got a phone call from a Facebook person, that I friended on Facebook. And I didn't even know you could call on Facebook. That's how low tech I am. All right. And so I'm like, well, that's interesting. And it was this guy, and I researched him. He'd been following me for 6 years, and he always had really nice compliments to say, and nothing weird, just very, nice. you know,
Mm-hmm.
saying he was attracted to me or whatever. Well,
You froze.
we started having conversation. I was a little bored, you know, being stuck at home. And so we had these really lovely conversations, and he worked with the elderly, and he lived about an hour and a half away, and seemed like a genuinely nice guy. We even FaceTimed so we could see each other. You know, I must admit, looked like a model. He was very good looking. And so we had several conversations when he said, you know, I would just really love to meet you in person and take you to dinner. And I think things are at a point, why don't we just do it? And I said, yeah, let's do that. He said, I have a timeshare, which was maybe 20 minutes from my home. And he said, I'll just book my timeshare. So that way I don't have to worry about driving home. I mean, it's like total gentleman, right?
Okay.
And we'll meet at this meet at a restaurant. He wasn't saying I'll come to your home, none of that. And I'm excited about it.
Okay.
Well, then nothing.
Oh, dude.
He shut me down. Yes. And so I hadn't heard of this trend, which is called ghosting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the heck? What do you mean ghosting? And why would he do this? I still don't understand. So I wrote a song about it.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's called Calling You Out.
Okay.
And one of the lines is, rejection ain't nothing but God's protection. You know?
Yeah.
And so that was my cathartic way of dealing with it, was to write a song. And I actually put it in my album. I mentioned to you earlier, I have an album that was my, you know, midlife bucket list thing to do. And I created 10 songs, and it was so freeing, so freeing. The musicians that I created the album with, they insisted I not have any singing lessons.
Okay.
And I went, okay. They said no. And they had recorded my voice. I thought they loved my lyrics and my melodies. And I thought they would, you know, just have somebody do the singing. And they said, no, you're like a female Elvis. And I'm like, what? And I've had that response 3 times now, female Elvis. So I'm Elvis in drag now as well. Okay.
All right.
And
you got the whole white jumpsuit thing somewhere.
There you go. Right.
Or at least the gold lame jacket.
So, but given that it is Valentine's, or we're in celebration of Valentine's, might I read a letter that
Yes.
someone asked me to? Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So this particular story was, there was this couple, and I'll just say, let's see, her name was Teresa, and we call her husband Jack. And they've been married quite a while, and they loved each other. There were no real issues other than they had totally lost their spark, and they'd put their energy into, you know, their jobs, paying bills, you know, remodeling the house, educating the kids, you know, blah, blah, to all this agenda around have to, must-haves, and responsibilities. And so they didn't have enough bandwidth to really keep their romance, keep the candle flame, you know, flying or whatever, lit. And so she found herself in this sort of humdrum marriage to a nice guy, but it became very routine and a little boring. And it's like, is that all there is? You know? Yeah. So she called me and asked, she wanted to give her husband a letter before the whole marital relationship sort of slipped away entirely. She wanted to catch that flame before it went out. So, and do kind of a marriage makeover. So this is her letter, which is entitled, I give all my letters a title. This one's called Cupid's Aim. And my letter service, I call Inspired Heart. Okay. So here we go. Jack, with Valentine's Day approaching, I find myself considering what that actually means. In my mind, I feel so grateful for having you and our wonderful children in my life. Honestly, though, my heart aches to once again experience that sense of joy, romance, and deep passion that brought us together in the first place. I fell in love with your kind heart, your caring nature, and your sense of fun, which is truly like a breath of fresh air. It may not always seem like it, but I need to let you know how much I really do want our relationship to be special and to be more loving. Love is a precious gift and is uniquely special with any two people who are lucky enough to find it. Although our love language seems different, or the way we express our love may not be exactly the same, I now realize that I'm not always a willing receiver when you act lovingly toward me. Likewise, it feels that my gestures of love have often gone unnoticed by you. Instead of feeling hurt or turned off, I see a bigger picture. I believe we both have been feeling somewhat misunderstood. Sadly, our original sense of feeling so in love has faded. My Valentine's gift to you, Jack, is to make good on our marriage vows. That is simply to love and honor you without conditions, other than being completely responsible for taking charge of my own happiness. You see, I'm starting to realize how much I need to love myself first. That way, there is so much more to give you and our family. Jack, I'm now taking a stand for us, for our marriage, for our family. Obviously, we still do have a great deal to learn from one another. I hope you will agree that beyond being there for the kids, we need to be there for each other. Let's go back to the beginning when we first met and we were so in tune with one another. Let's be really romantic. I'd like to start dating you again. Will you be my Valentine? Your loving better half, Teresa.
Nice.
Yeah. And so anyway, the letter went over really well, and they were able to clear up how each of them felt like their gestures, as was mentioned, were not received as they were intended. And that kind of goes on par with the 5 languages of love. You know, he probably felt like if he, you know, picked up the kids from school and saved her the trip or whatever, that was a loving gesture, when she really maybe wanted to have something more sensual, for example. So, yeah.
I think that's part of the problem is we don't know how to communicate how we feel. We're never taught that. We're never taught to embrace our feelings. We're never taught to be honest, you know, and we are never taught about expectations, that we have to truly look at our own expectations of what we want and what the other person wants to see if they're in line, because so many times that's where we miss the cues at.
Exactly. How I coin it is the relationship is actually a separate entity. In the business of love, there's one partner, there's the other partner, and then the relationship is what they are creating together. Is it being abandoned, or is it being nurtured?
Right.
You know, is it being abused or ignored or taken for granted, or is it cherished? And I think that's we can go on, auto drive so easily. And I think also in a world that has come to largely be created by or made up of a lot of instant gratification rewards, that doesn't always carry through in the realm of emotional growth. You know, that emotional intimacy is as important. If you can combine that with the physical intimacy, wow,
Yeah.
But if you have one but not the other, we do compromise, and sometimes we have to for health reasons or other things that are outside of the box. But I think you're so right. The real communication goes deeper than we know.
Well, I mean, and I've been honest on the podcast. In fact, now I am kind of embarrassed by it, because there's a episode I talked to a sex therapist about, and I was very open about my relationship with my husband, and it's got like the most views, and it's like, okay, great. So I've outed myself already, but we had a marriage where we did try initially. He was diabetic, and we never had that that physical intimacy. Did we still mess around and make out? Sure. But was he able to actually physically? No. But this is also a man who said, oh, when I read him a review about this great toy that came out a few years ago, he's like, you need one of those for your birthday. So we're going to make sure you have that. And before that, it's like, oh, let's go over to Lover's Lane and take a look at something too. So it wasn't like, because I can't give you something. I mean, this man was willing to, there's this thing called Caverjack, and I'm not sure if you're willing, you know about this, but for some men, and I know if this is TMI, I apologize, for some men to try to get an erection, they will inject a needle into their penis. Yeah.
And I've heard of men actually having some kind of surgical procedure where there is a permanent rod, so to speak, I want to say. I don't know. This is what I've been told.
I had a claim in our unit that a gentleman claimed that his seatbelt messed with that and he was permanently erect. So yes, that is a possibility too. But I often look at it, the fact that my husband was willing to do that for me. And it's like, he did it twice and I'm like, it didn't work really. So it was like, I don't want you to put yourself through that stress. I love you. And I think that's when you look at love in a relationship in your your late teens, early 20s, and even your 30s, you're like, let's rip our clothes off, let's get at it. And you're not looking at the long term. When you hit your late 30s, early 40s, you're looking at a relationship differently. While it's great to let's go rip our clothes off, you also want somebody that's your partner.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you've both acquired enough life experience that you've had an opportunity to reflect and develop your sense of awareness and your history and all of that, and things that when you're young, you're just could care less about,
right?
Things going on in the world, even it's like, yeah, whatever. And then when you get older, it's like, well, wait a second, this is really important. So it's what takes on value and importance is key. I was on just last weekend, I was on someone's show, and I had to actually drive up to Newport Beach, a couple hours away, to the studio. And this was a doctor who specializes in, he's known for his blood analysis, microscopic blood analysis, and he even invented an amazing microscope. And he also wrote a book on sexuality. So we are in the, I'm on his show, and he wants to know about my Inspired Heart Letter service and thus and such. And all of a sudden the conversation turns to this very detailed explanation he was delivering on the female anatomy and how women have various forms of orgasm and this and that. And I had the sense that, that maybe he was like a little Dickens and he was trying to be a little off-putting for me, right? Like, this little shocker. And so I don't know, but it was a little off guard. So I thought, okay, I'm going to share this story, and I'm going to share it now because it is interesting. And I think the audience will relate, but it's cute too. So this one woman, she was middle-aged and divorced, had a couple kids that were already grown, and she got remarried. And she was really in love with her second husband, and he was financially very well off, good-looking guy. He was probably, I think, 6 or 8 years older than her. And they lived in a lovely area, good life, traveled, they were living a very good life. They got along well. And she said to me, the only complaint is our sex life. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, it's just not there anymore. And we haven't even been married 2 years. And he just does not want to be intimate. He says he's too tired, or he's busy, or this or that. He ran a company. And she said, so I'm just figuring that maybe he's having a hard time functioning. And so I'm looking at the good parts, our lifestyle, our friendship, companionship, all of that. So she went to the local hair salon in a very posh neighborhood. And there was 5 or 6 workers there, stylists. And she was sort of bragging and saying, they said, how's the marriage? How's your new? Oh, it's fantastic. You should see. Let me show you our remodel to our beautiful home. And she had a live cam, right? So she goes, this is our bedroom. And then we're like, that's gorgeous. Oh, and this is the new kitchen and the new fireplace. And we put skylights and la, 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 la. And this is my husband's office. And they go to the office and there he is pleasuring himself to porn. And the hairdressers, one hairdresser, this guy goes, well, he's a big boy, you know. And she said, oh my God, I was so humiliated, you know.
Yeah.
But, and then when she got home, she shared the story with her husband. He did not want to talk about it. He put the ignore button on with that. But it is interesting. And so my what if analysis is, it does take energy to keep a relationship alive.
Yeah.
And again, I revert back to the idea about instant gratification. And, you know, there's no emotional investment in, you know, watching porn or having a prostitute, I suppose, or whatever. And yet there is in a real relationship, you have to invest emotionally. And sometimes the resentments are sort of filtered. In other words, well, there he goes, leaving the toilet seat, you know, up again. And it's so inconsiderate, but I'm not going to get a divorce over it. You know, and then there's another little complaint and another one. And then you start filling your emotional bag up, and maybe the other partner is upset with nuances about your behavior. And when you don't talk about it and you don't, you know, deal with it.
Right.
And it is about compromise. Then things become passive aggressive even, or people start to shut down from having that amazing demonstration of full out love and romance. I tell you, I'm writing my next song on the notion of romance. I don't want it to go away. A lot of our song lyrics today, the rap songs and such, I mean, it all has its place. I appreciate it, but some of the lyrics are so, in my opinion, are disrespectful on many levels. And so it's like, I don't really know that the younger population is benefiting from that as much as, you know, those classics of romance that we all turn to. I mean, one of my sisters her hobby is collecting old black and white movies, you know, from the day back in the 40s or 50s or whatever, because of the romance. So
the second book I wrote is a romantic suspense, and there's sex in it. And I've been told by somebody who's interviewed me and vice versa, that she's like, I didn't realize you were such a naughty girl. And I mean, I've had a comment that, well, it walks the fine line between porn and erotica. And I'm like, okay. And I mean, I didn't write it that spicy. There's a small vibrator used, but that's, you know, nothing big. Yeah. But then I had a group of women tell me, well, it was spicy, but I'm like, what's the but? Well, I wanted to know the size of him. I wanted to know the girth. I wanted to know, and I'm thinking, what?
Wow.
What?
Wow.
When you're with a man, do you get a measuring stick out to say, hey, let me measure you. Let me see do you do that? You know, in sex scenes, why am I going to sit here? And I will say this, to get around this in my next book, I actually have a song playing in the background by Vanity. And she talks about wanting 7 inches or more. And I have the guy make some kind of glib remark that, well, I have this. I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and go into graphic detail about what his package looks like.
Right. And that's kind of making light and making fun and making it flirty, the song, you know, it's wanting to lend a little shock value, get people to
Right.
listen, that type of thing. But yeah, that is, well, to thine own self be true.
Right.
Who am I to dictate what someone's, what their notion of perfect sex or whatever is
Well,
like?
consent is a big thing now in books, but I write in the 80s, and I'm going to stick true to the 80s. In the 80s, if somebody was going to kiss you, they were going to kiss you. It wasn't, oh, excuse me, pardon me, can I kiss you now?
Oh, really? I didn't see that one's gone by me.
Oh no, consent is a big thing. That
I
it's a
don't think
big
I've been
thing.
asked to be kissed.
Consent,
I'm trying to remember.
at least in the literary world. I mean, I went to a writing conference last year, and because of the Me Too movement, consent became a big thing. And so when I'm at the writing conference, my question is, so what about the female orgasm? Do we talk more about that? Do we talk about the potential of certain things happening? Do we talk about that? And they're like, well, yeah, you can. I'm like, all right. But it's one of those things where it's like, and I've come to the point as an author that you can't please everybody. So am I going to sit there and have him say, oh, wait, let me ask you. And this, I got into a conversation with a guest earlier this year about the fact that, so when does it become, if we are so involved in consent, and I'm not saying consent's the wrong thing, folks, when do we get to a point where a guy says, well, wait a second, I need you to fill out this paperwork and sign it that I have your permission, or let me film this, that way I know I have your permission, that way if you change your mind, you can't come back and say, well, and the same thing, I mean, a woman could do the same thing, whichever, but when do we get to that point? If we are it goes back to what you were saying about taking the romance out. If I have to sit there and you are leaning in and I'm leaning in and go, oh, wait, do you want to kiss?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, no, that's that kind of breaks the moment, doesn't it?
yeah,
Where it should just be spontaneous, energetic,
yeah.
yeah.
It becomes more transactional then. Not that relationships aren't transactional because you share energy, but it becomes more of a conformist transactional issue. It's it's not the passionate exchange.
Yeah, speaking of leaning in, I always coach women when they are on a first date to not lean in across the table and start spewing, your whole life, you're this, you're that, but rather lean back and be the queen and have a give and take flow to the conversation, be a good listener, take a pause, take a breath, because I think the online dating thing it's still awkward. I think it's always a bit awkward. And so for some people, I think when they get nervous, they get super gabby, or they, and they're like it comes off like they're just forcing themselves, like, like take me, buy me, whatever. And it's such a turnoff because no matter what, I think we do have our basic DNA, which is men, and this is I'm not, God, it would sound sexist at all. So everyone's different, but by and large, in my experience, men really enjoy earning what they have in life, even in their relationships. So if it's just all thrown at them without having to try, it's like they can brag about it. They can chalk off the numbers of people that they've slept with, whatever. But the value, the honoring piece doesn't always match up with that. In my experience of working with thousands of people and my own personal life. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even if I go back to my second husband, he had to earn me. It wasn't that, it goes back to that card reading. I didn't sit there and go, oh yes, that's definitely me. It was we had to get to know each other. And I mean, he wasn't the first guy that I read for that I ended up dating. There's another one in there. But the fact is, he had to prove to me that he was worthy. It wasn't just, okay, let's go.
Right.
When since it is Valentine's Day, I will share one of my worst dating stories ever. So I was dating the second guy, the guy between my husband and my first husband and my second husband. And we had met at college, and he was younger than me, and like a lot younger than me, because when I was queen of the school in 8th grade, he brought me flowers and he was a kindergartner. But now we're in college and I'm 27 and he's, 19. And age has now become irrelevant at this point. Yeah. So we're dating, we're having a good time and everything. And he gives me roses before the weekend before Valentine's Day. He gives me roses. He gives me a CD that I wanted. Everything's hunky dory. And then we go to a movie, and his friend, that's a girl who desperately wants to date him. And I know this, and I'm trying to tell him because, I'm an older person, so I can see what she's doing. She's like, oh, she shows up at the movie theater. So then she's like, we all should go out the next night. I'm like, okay, fine. So we were in New Orleans. We go out to the House of Blues. I don't want to be here. So then we go to Oz, which is a gay bar, and she could not get in. So I had to pretend that she was my girlfriend. So she gets in, and then we go back to his house because she's not happy. And she starts taking and having these conversations where I'm not part of. Do you remember when we did this? Do you remember when we did this? And I'm trying to tell him, I'm like, look, dude, she is after you. No. Yeah. So he breaks up with me. So Valentine's Day, I had to go to the grocery store where I worked, and they needed somebody to volunteer in the floral department and make bouquets.
Oh no.
Yes.
It's like karma or something. I don't know.
It was just like, okay, so I get to make flowers for everybody else. Granted, I got my roses a couple of days before, but it was just like, how do you deal with a breakup while you're trying to make love for everybody else? It was just,
oh my goodness. Yes. Wow. That's a wild story. But really
I will say this. He also, this will sum up everything that I should have known the relationship wasn't going to work, because I read his cards, and we were in a group full of people. And he's like, can you read my cards can I ask a question without asking? I'm like, sure, but you got to tell me later. He's like, okay. So I read it, and I'm like, the answer is yes. Okay. So he walks me out to my car that night, and I'm like, so what was the question? Will I ever sleep with a guy?
Oh no, seriously.
But I didn't think about it, because I just had come off my marriage, and it's like, oh, this guy's nice to me. He's really sweet, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, looking back, it's like, oh, honey, you didn't even stand a chance. You should have just said, okay, right then and there. But yeah.
Wow.
But that's like the worst Valentine's Day story I have. And I mean, it's like, can you imagine going to a florist after you break up and you have to make all the flowers for everybody else?
That's like out of a movie. That's like out of a Netflix movie. Seriously. No, I'm serious. So back to Valentine's, I'm going to share with you. I also, because I'm a word person, I also have composed poetry for people.
Okay.
And on my wish list is to also look at writing songs for special occasions down the road. So that's my next bucket list thing. But anyway, so this Valentine poem, this woman and her husband had been going through a pretty rocky patch, and they actually grew up as kids together. Their mothers were best friends. And they each they grew up, and I think they might have dated a little bit in high school, and it wasn't, it was all light and fluffy. And then they went to college, and they got their own lives, and they both married and had kids, and then they divorced. And because they knew each other, because their mothers were still best friends, so it was almost like having a cousin almost, but not really. So they ended up dating again, and then they got married. Wow. And then they went through some difficult patches in their marriage, and I helped her to write an inspired heart letter, and that really did spark things, and things were going really great. So Valentine's Day was approaching, and she called me and she said, I love your words. Would you consider writing a love poem for Valentine's and to commemorate where we're at? And I said, sure. So this is the Valentine poem. So here we go. Of all the ways that I have known you, from the wide eyes of a young girl to being held in your loving arms, so true. As a woman, now as your wife, a deeper knowing does unfurl. With you, my love, I share my heart. Our book is still a mystery, how in this love we came to be. I sing your praise as we step into the light, shedding what did not fit, together creating a real home, all to my heart's sheer delight. Now when I see you, your eyes do smile. Climbing the peak, I can see only blue skies. The journey of this heart is worth the while. The true blue love of you, radiant in your eyes. Yes, we have weathered some stormy time where I felt my heart disappear. Now the sun shines bright, we feel so right, and the why of us much more clear. Thank you, my darling, for being so brave, the emotional risks indeed. Show me how much there is to save. Staying safe in your heart is all I need. Be my Valentine forever. So she really enjoyed that poem, and she had it engraved on a piece of crystal and gave it to him for Valentine's.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I want to just emphasize how written words carry a frequency. And the thing is people don't toss letters away. Last year during COVID, I was doing the, decluttering and cleaning the garage. And I opened this one mystery box, and there's a letter from my daughter when she was 8 years old. And we adopted her at birth. That's a whole other story. We weren't looking to adopt. And the psychic had told me when we were having trouble, I had miscarriages and whatever. We were having trouble creating children. And so I went to a psychic fair, and this is many years ago. And this old lady psychic said, well, I see you're adopting a baby girl. Well, I walked away and said, well, that was a waste of $10. And then a few weeks later, we got a phone call from some friends who said, who weren't privy to any of our, interested in having children or any of that. And the husband said, hey, I just got a phone call from this woman who's the best friend of the aunt of this girl in another state. She's in Utah, and she wants to adopt. She's pregnant. She's like 17, 18, and she wants to adopt her baby out of states. And your face has appeared. What do you think? And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, it just happened to be at my husband's office when the phone rang. Yeah. So I start writing letters back and forth to the birth mother, real sweet girl, one of 5 daughters, very Mormon family, very strict. And she said, I want to come to California. I want to meet you and your husband. I'm bringing one of my sisters. And there's another couple in Laguna Beach, which was an hour and a half away. And they are interested in adopting a baby girl. And the husband is the adopted son of the church elder here in Utah. And I don't know why my computer's doing weird things. And so I go back to the old lady psychic because, I was raised Catholic. My husband was of Jewish background, and only darkened a temple if there was a party. Anyway, so I go to this psychic, and I said, well, you wouldn't believe I was here a couple months ago and you said this and da da da. And what about this couple? And she said, our souls travel in tribes. Mm-hmm. And this little girl is in your top 10 inner circle in your soul tribe. And she is meant to be with you. So I said, well, what about this couple in Laguna? They seem perfect. And she said, no, let's just say they're no longer in the picture. So when we met the birth mom and her sister during dinner, she suddenly says, I have this incredible sense of peace around you, and I want you to be the parents of my baby. Well, I start to cry, and I said, oh my God. I said, but you haven't even met the couple in Laguna. And she said, well, they're no longer in the picture.
Yeah, I know about those things. When you actually say something that somebody says, I get told that quite a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So So anyway, I don't even know where I'm going with this other than to say, gosh, I think I just had a middle-aged moment on that one.
It's okay.
But
It's a lovely story. I mean, it's a lovely story about love and how, you know, sometimes the
oh,
unexpected
I know
happens. Oh,
where it was. So I'm going through I found her letter in the garage in the box. And she says, she's 8 years old. She's 26 now. Mommy, I love you so much because you give me kisses. I love you because I'm adopted. I love you because we look alike. And well, I love you because you're just too cute to be mad at.
oh.
And it's like, P.S. I love you. Am I going to throw that away?
No.
No.
Well, I mean, going through a box the other day, I found my mother's death certificate, a power of attorney that I had from my grandmother, my husband's high school diploma, and his college records. And it's like, okay, well, I need to keep the death certificate. The power of attorney, I don't need to keep. His college records, I don't need to keep. The high school diploma, I don't need to keep it. But then it's part of me. It's like, this is a moment where it's like, and some cards that he gave me, which yes, I'm keeping. But it's one of those moments where you start looking at your own mortality after that, because it's like, okay, I have no bio children, so where are those things going to go when I go? So
Mm-hmm.
it makes you start evaluating life, and the
It,
cards, and the letters from people that matter, those are going to keep, because you can look back, and even if it just says love you.
exactly. I told you before we went on the program that I actually was like a private Benjamin. I was in the army. I went as a teenager to Germany, and I was felt very lonely there in the beginning and out of place. And it was foreign territory in every sense of the word. And my older brother Bobby, who passed away when he was young in his 30s, but he wrote to me while I was in the military. Do you know I still have his letter? And I
Nice.
uncovered that out of a box. And when I read it, it just brought tears to my eyes because it was like he was in the room with me.
Mm-hmm.
His personality, who he was, came right through. So, what I'm also doing for clients now is I'm helping them. And I'm sorry for the garbage truck. It's Thursday.
I'm like, is there a monster
I know. Anyway, they heard me and left. Okay, so anyway, but so now what I'm doing is I'm helping clients to write what I call legacy letters.
Okay.
So it doesn't necessarily mean you even have an issue with somebody, but a letter that brings up beautiful stories during the relationship, whether it's a parent to a child, a
Mm-hmm.
sibling, a dear friend, a grandmother, it doesn't matter, a teacher to a student. Lovely memories, what you were going through, how you felt about them, what was the sign of the times, what was it like, whatever, and what you appreciate and honor, etc. And then that goes into a legacy letter, which gets passed down in generation. Can you imagine, like, someday I have a little 3-year-old grandson, and he's going to scratch his head when he's a teenager and go, "Oh my God, you mean you actually lived through
Yeah.
2020 and 2021 and 2022? Oh my God, excuse me." So I think that's another really great way to honor and to create that special gift to the whole family through letters.
When you were talking about that, it made me think about what I did for my dad's 50th birthday. I had made him a scrapbook, and in front of the scrapbook, I wrote him this letter. And of course, I pulled him aside. It was the beginning of his birthday party, and I knew he was going to party because I was the designated driver. So I'm like, I need you to do that. He's like, no, I don't want my gifts now. I'm like, no, you need to do this now while you're sober. He's like, all right. So he starts reading it. I made him cry because it's like I gave him all these memories of hose fights and things. He goes, you actually remember this stuff? I'm like, yeah, I do. And so it was kind of one of those things to get that moment. That was one of the few moments that I can really look back and go, I touched him. He got it. He understood. And there's not always that give and take when it comes to kids and parents. So when you can do that with your parent, it's actually especially if you're focusing on the positive, it's a way for you to connect with your mom or dad and have some good meaning to it.
Yeah, and it really gives the value to what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And what you were saying earlier, Donna, about time,
Mm-hmm.
we can't take it back. We have to make our time count, and we have to be present for the experiences and not take everything for granted, and not distract ourselves with nose to the grindstone or sitting in front of the TV or the computer day in, day out, without being out in the world and even in nature, or just coloring your life with amazing adventures and experiences.
Well, I mean, think about it this way. When you would go to a concert back in the day, you'd watch the concert. Granted, it would be lovely to have a video of it. But now, how many people do you see doing this number? I mean, are you really
you're
there
right.
in the experience? Or are you there? Because it's going to sound like crap on your phone. Let's be honest. It's not going to sound good. So by sitting here doing this, are you missing out on something? Is it better to watch it here than here?
Yeah. Wow. You're right. You're
I
right.
mean, I love tech. Don't get me wrong. I love tech, but I think we've lost some human element. And especially like now, as you were saying earlier about that movie, Her, it's like, well, AI can write a book for you. Okay, but is it really going to be a good book? Is it going to have the humanity to it? Which, speaking of books, I want to shift over before we wrap this up to RELATIONSHIFT.
Thank you.
I put shift to shift.
So like I said, I've written hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of letters, and I also write eulogies, which is the last word. Mm-hmm. And people will call me when they're just overwhelmed or in shock, or if they even know that their loved one is getting ready to pass, or they're still like having to deal with the reality of it. And sometimes there's unfinished business. Mm-hmm. And it's very hard when you're called upon. You're the oldest child and you were molested by that parent, and you have to, for the sake of the event, perhaps do a beautiful eulogy, that kind of thing. So there can be tough ones. So I specialize in that as well. But my book is called RELATIONSHIFT: How to Write the Words You Really Want to Say. And by that, and I kind of hit upon it earlier, is I tap into your higher heart, move past your ego, and it's your words. I just sort of channel it through. And so the book, I never asked for any of the endorsements. It was really serendipitous. It's like the angels were watching over me. But I have these amazing endorsements from John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, Dr. Christiane Northrup, who's really out there today. I was at one of her rallies, and she wrote Women's Wisdom, Women's Bodies, Goddesses Never Age, and a ton of other books. So she's in human development and such. And also Ariel Ford, who was Deepak Chopra's publicist, and she wrote The Soulmate Secret. She is sister to Debbie Ford, who had passed away and had written some beautiful spiritual books. And also to Catherine Woodward Thomas, who wrote Calling in the One, Conscious Uncoupling. And they're all luminaries within that realm of relationships and human development. So I'm very proud of the book. I have it it's on, if you go to my website, which you might be able to see, I don't know how close.
KristinGrant.com.
Yeah, KristinGrant.com with a K. Mm-hmm. You can find the link to the book. You can also download a complimentary ebook. It's a short little booklet that I wrote, which will give some guidance if you'd like to compose your own Valentine or your own letter. It just kind of points out the do's and don'ts and what you should consider. The book itself, though, I think it's came out beautifully because it's all other people's stories, which are very precious. And the hardcover is in color. So you open the book and all the letters are in a beautiful baby blue. And the Audible is what I've done is I've laced my music through it. My
Nice.
album is Love Letters by my performer's name, Tina Rose. So Tina Rose, my middle name.
Yeah.
And there's all the songs that are in there are, like I said, you can hear them in the Audible version of the book, or you can download those songs. They're on all the platforms. Go to www.tinarosemusic.com. You'll get a free download of that Calling You Out song I mentioned with The Guy Ghosted Me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it has a list of all the platforms for you to access the rest of the album. So if you like kind of jazzy R&B-ish, sexy kind of music,
Mm-hmm.
a little flirty and whatever, you might enjoy it. Okay. And great saxophone, great jazz violin, harmonica riffs. I mean, I love the musicians that were willing to take the journey with me. So that's that on that. And also, if anyone who's listening would like to get on a chat with me, a one-on-one, to see if I can give you some insights, I'm happy to do that. You can go on my calendar. By the way, my website is in the process of being rebuilt, but the calendar and such is still working. So yeah, get on the calendar and we can have, we can talk for 20 minutes or so, and I can just give you some good coaching or feedback on what you might be dealing with or any questions that you might have. Okay. So yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing all the information. The rest of the links that she has will be in the show notes, as well as the links we talked about. I thank you for your time and coming on for the Valentine's Day episode.
Oh, it was my pleasure. It was fun. And so glad to get to know you. You're an amazing woman.
Thank you. It was good to get to know you as well. So I think it was an interesting show, as always. I think Kristin, and she will be back because she wants to talk about another project that she has. And it's an anti-bullying project. And I think, because we talked about it a little bit off air, I think you guys may like it a lot too. So her book, RELATIONSHIFT, yes, it's an interesting title, and you best be careful when you're saying it. I think we need to learn a lot about our relationships and how we interact with people. As I had stated in the podcast earlier, when you're in your 20s and your 30s, you're looking for a relationship where it's all about passion and desire. But at a certain point, you realize that, what, I need a partner. I need somebody that's got me, understands me, loves me for me. And it doesn't matter how healthy I am. It doesn't matter what I look like. They love me because I am me. So on Valentine's Day, I don't have my Valentine anymore, but I still have the memories of my Valentine. But if you do have a Valentine, I hope you have a wonderful day. And if you don't, that's okay too, because you know what? It's a day of love. So love yourself. And there's a lot of ways to love yourself, but we're not going to go there anyway. So if you like the podcast, as always, you can leave a comment, a question, or a review. The reviews go over on Podchaser or on Apple. And if you have a question, comment, or concern, you can send me an email at Dauna, DAUNA, at better2podcast.com. And if this is your first time listening and you want to catch up on the episodes, you can find them all at better2podcast.com. Also there, we have our social links as well as our Patreon page. That's if you would like to support the podcast. And we have some changes coming up in the not too distant future for season 5. Season 2 is being extended just a little bit. So I'm kicking off season 5 on the 1-year anniversary of the show, which is March 23rd. But until then, we have several episodes coming up that I think you'll be fascinated with. So on that note, I wish you the best. I hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you next time, guys. Bye. The Better 2 podcast is mixed, edited, and produced by Rich Zai of Third Ear Audio Productions.